Welcome,
Thanks.
Michael.
Great suit.
Yeah, no, thank you. I need to tell you about the suit. MG is here. You know, the problem is the peripheral vision is not very good. Please have a seat. You have to know about the costume, though. I tweeted, you know, is there someone who can help me find an Angry Birds costume? And of course, you can't, you know, buy this like anywhere. And I just, you know, if this friend is watching me, by the way, thanks, but pointed me to Etsy. And Etsy, there is a supplier there who does, it's called the Clock Blog, who did this by hand. And when I ordered it, instantly, they shipped it to me. They were so nice, we talked and so on. And they said, we're so sad to let it go, because it took hours to do, but we're happy using it for that. Thank you, Michael, for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Play now.
Yeah, you look great, Louis. OK, so why don't we start off by talking about, you know, it's not a story that I've heard. I'm sure that you've given it a number of times, but maybe people in the audience haven't heard. What is the actual story behind Angry Birds? Like, what's the origin of it?
Right. So the Angry Birds story started off with one mock screenshot made by our game designer, Jaakko Isalo. So he drew a picture with some really angry-looking round bird characters that were trudging along on the ground and with a big cloud of dust trailing behind them. And they were moving towards a big pile of blocks. And he started explaining the game mechanics of it, that you tap one of these birds, there are different colors, and then it jumps onto a block of the same color and it disappears. And I frankly didn't understand anything of that game concept. But everybody really loved those bird characters.
Right.
So we set out to design a game around those characters, and after many, many iterations, we ended up with the game that is now Angry Birds.
And can you share some of the latest numbers so we can get a sense of the scope of just how popular the game is?
Sure. So the game has sold more than 12 million copies. So those are the paid downloads. And then, in addition, there are something like, well, 30 million or more free downloads on the different platforms.
And the majority of the paid ones are on the iPhone, I assume.
That's correct.
Pretty much all of them. And yeah, then so recently, you know, in October, I believe you launched the Android version of it, which you did through GitJar. Is that correct?
That's right. We launched first at GitJar.
Okay, and so yeah, so how's that going in particular? Because it was kind of a breakaway from the very successful iPhone model that you had, where you were selling this and making a lot of money, but you decided to go free. Talk a little bit about that decision.
Right. So we looked at the Android market and realized when we were doing some open betas, we saw that not all customers were able to download through the Android market. And for us, that was a big concern. So we wanted to make sure that first of all, that everybody would have access to the game. And the paid apps on Android market are not available in all countries, and not even in every country for all operators. So we ended up with the advertising paid model, and that's worked out very well.
Yeah, I mean, was that kind of surprising to you? You know, it had worked so well as a paid game, but now, you know, the numbers are, I think, that, you know, reported to be you're making like $1 million a month in advertising. And, you know, that can easily overtake what you're making in terms of the app sales on the iPhone itself. Did that really take you by surprise a little bit, how well the advertising model's doing on that?
Well, we knew how much people actually do play Angry Birds. We knew how many restarts of the levels there are, and so we had an idea of how well it could do. But I do think that the future really will hold many more apps that will be advertising revenue based, simply because that's a great way to capture users for a long time within the one app and to have the ads visible to them. So I think that it will at least very well complement like television ads, radio ads, if not eat market space from them.
Are you thinking kind of about maybe doing in the future a version, of Angry Birds that would be like free on the iPhone and then, supported by ads even?
It's possible, but on the iPhone, the commercial model works very well. So there's one shop, everybody uses it, and Apple forces everybody to register for iTunes before they can use the phone. So basically, everybody can buy on iPhone.
Okay, I'm a little interested in hearing a bit more. I know there's been quite a bit of talk recently about the Android version in particular, because you guys came out with a blog post talking about how there were severe performance issues on some of the lower end Android devices, and that's really kind of hampered development. You had a whole list of devices that you couldn't really support. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, I know Apple is trying to frame it that there's really a big fragmentation problem with Android, with all these devices out there. And I think Steve Jobs has even mentioned, I think, TweetDeck, kind of citing them, and then they came back at him saying, no, it's not really that big of an issue. How big of an issue is it for you guys, do you think?
It's not too much of an issue because our background is in Java gaming. So our company is 7 years old. We've done 53 games, and that means that we have a platform, technological platform that really allows easy porting across different platforms. And also, in the good old Java days, we had to port all of our games to hundreds of different handsets. So it's kind of familiar to us. It is an issue, of course. It does take up manpower to do it. And in some cases, we can't support all of the handsets because of that some of the older handsets might have too slow a processor or too little memory or whatever reason. But most of the Android handsets are okay. Is
the problem mainly the processor and the amount of memory in it versus what version of Android is actually running, would you say? Because it's kind of an issue versus whether the carriers are holding something back versus whether it's just the hardware issue. Is it more the hardware issue than carriers not wanting to update to the latest version of Android, would you say?
I think anything from Android version 2.0 upwards is fine.
Solid, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and in terms of what you're going to do then going forward with Android, you're committed to making a second version, right? A lightweight version. Is that what you guys are going to do?
We may do that.
You may do that, right? Okay, you were thinking about doing that.
Yes.
Yeah, and that would just be a little bit scaled down version of the game that would still have the same basic gameplay features, but maybe less graphics intensive, something like that.
That's right. Yes. So just like on the iPhone.
Okay. And what about some of the other platforms? I know when Windows Phone launched, there was kind of a funny little moment because they were talking about, oh yeah, there will be Angry Birds for this, but you guys weren't ready for that yet. There's some talk that it could launch next year. Is that something you guys are actively looking at?
Yeah, we are actually looking at Windows Phone 7. So I mean, we have a very good relationship with Microsoft, so no harm done on that side. I think Microsoft simply announced it a bit too early,
right?
And that's all.
What about it just launched yesterday, the Chrome Web Store? Are you guys giving any thought to that? Doing something specifically within the browser?
Yeah, Chrome is interesting. Yeah. Chrome is very interesting, and we are looking at that also.
Would that be? Do you think that would be another thing that would be a totally advertising-driven model, or they have payments built in? I'm not sure what the country rules are there, but what do you think about that for the web itself?
Again, just like with Android, it remains to be seen how wide the payment coverage is. Mm-hmm. But as long as it works, it should be great. The revenue split is certainly interesting between developer and the store. And
what about we've seen huge success between Playfish and Zynga and all these other companies. What about Facebook? What are you guys going to do on that? Are you committed to kind of coming to that platform as well and taking advantage of the social stuff? Yeah, I mean,
Facebook is another very interesting area for us. And now that the trend definitely on Facebook games also seems to be that the games need to have more gameplay elements in them.
Right.
Then it starts to be a very favorable time to get onto Facebook. So we are working on that side too.
And so let's move on to talk about kind of one of the most fascinating things about this whole explosion of interest in Angry Birds has really been the toy aspect of it. How did that all come about? Was that something you were talking about internally and you just decided to do? What were the thoughts there?
So a member on our advisory board, Peter Levin, actually, who has been a big fan of the game since its launch, and he introduced us to a licensing agent called Striker Entertainment very early on. So we actually made a licensing deal very, very early this year, and set out a strategy for how to start building the brand on that side too, and not to overexploit the brand. And it's something that we've been working on for a long time, and now we're seeing the first products come out to market, and the results have been very encouraging.
You've basically like sold out, right, of the initial run?
That's right, that's right. So we're waiting for more toys to arrive from China, and now basically we're selling inventory that will arrive in late January or February.
Really, yeah. So kind of the holidays are off the books right now. You sold out all of those?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. There is a huge demand for it.
I'm sure a lot of children are very upset about that. And you've talked a little bit about, too, kind of the cross-marketing between this. Like maybe you could show ads in the games for the toys themselves. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, that seems like it could be a huge opportunity given how well advertising is doing in your game.
Yeah, right. And actually now we do have a button inside of the game. Well, at least some versions of the game already, and trying to get on all of them. But we have a button linking to our store. It's very visible, and that has certainly driven a lot of traffic there, and also driven that business very
great.
Well.
What about I don't know where Loic disappeared to with his little fun costume, but how did stuff like that come about? Is that something you guys are actually involved in, those costumes themselves?
No, actually, that was very interesting. That how it's become a mainstream phenomenon. All this with Angry Birds. That this Halloween we received literally thousands of images of people wearing Angry Birds outfits, especially in the U.S. where it's like a huge thing, and we had nothing to do with that, but I guess for next year we'll have to come up with the official costume as well.
Yeah, there's obviously much interest there. What about in terms of more traditional gaming, like the gaming consoles? Have you guys thought about that? I mean, that's would be totally breaking away from the success you've seen with the advertising in many regards, and moving more towards a paid model. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so next year we definitely will move into consoles as well. So we are currently working on console versions, and it is a more traditional business model, but there too we are mostly interested in the downloadable content side.
Gotcha. And is there a good way you guys are thinking of to tie this all together, all the different platforms, in a way that's really bringing all the different users, millions of users, tens of millions of users together? We are.
So we're building a back-end system that will then allow all of the versions of the game to communicate, basically. So at least at the very minimum, people can store their progress on one device and continue on another, and play from the same spot.
Nice. That'll be great for a lot of people. So one other kind of side thing was there was a lot of talk about movies, that like a potential movie deal. I believe you spoke a little bit about it in the press, that there were several studios that were kind of interested in approaching you. What's the status on that? Anything?
Right. So we have looked very closely at the movie side. The issue with the movies, I guess, for us mostly, is that any movie that we make will take up to 4 years to get into theaters, and so for us, we are more keen to see something come out faster than that, and so we know that as long as we keep doing our job well, the movie is never off the book. So we can do that anytime, but right now we're focused more on the smaller screen.
And I mean, I assume that would be an animated movie and not Loic dressed up acting as the main character in the Angry Birds movie?
We'll see. He's a strong contender, so we're kind of like taking in all the suggestions right now.
Okay, yeah. Good. It's on the table, I'm glad. What about what's next? Is there another game you guys are working on? You know, given the huge success, obviously you've had to devote a lot of resources to it. I know the team was small to begin with, so what are you guys doing now?
Right, so at the beginning of this year we were only 12 people, and now we're close to 40, and we're still expanding fast. And for up to now, all of our manpower has gone into making different versions of Angry Birds, but next up we're working on also bringing out new titles that may or may not be Angry Birds related. Gotcha.
And would the strategy be the same then, kind of going with maybe the two-prong approach, do some paid versions, do some free versions, and then also do the merchandising around it? Thinking of the same lines?
Yeah, so we are focusing much more on the quality of the game. So we would rather do a few less quantity and more quality. So just to make sure that every single product that we come out with is great and that can work in all of these domains that you mentioned.
And in terms of the team expanding so quickly, I know you have talked a little bit in the press also about a lot of interested investors coming towards you guys. How are you guys doing in terms of you don't have to disclose your money if you don't want to, but you can on stage here. How are you doing in terms of revenues, in terms of income? Do you need more money? You're ramping up so quickly. How's that all going?
Yeah, no, we don't actually need more money. I think that's been the one issue that's kept us from taking in any investment is that we simply couldn't figure out where we need that much more money, because right now we are very, very profitable, and so even at our very fast pace of expansion that we foresee, we don't have a problem in covering that with our income. But yeah, there certainly is a lot of interest, and we'll see. Maybe we'll figure out more creative ways to spend the money, and then we'll have a good reason to take in some.
And no doubt a lot of acquisition interest, I'm sure, given what we've seen in the gaming space, in recent months. I know there was a lot of talk, a lot of confusion that maybe you guys were bought by EA. That wasn't you. That was Chilingo who was purchased by them. But yeah, I mean, is it just kind of insane right now how many companies are approaching you and just want to get at Angry Birds?
That's never insane. I like that type of
interest.
Interest, yeah. So yeah, there is a lot of interest. It's good to have that kind of talks too. For now, we've been really keen to build our own business and really see where we can get with what we're doing.
Great. Well, that's a perfect way to segue out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks.